there's videos like Ulduar was going to be hard, or this one is going to be Ulduar will be easier than you think. I don't think anyone was arguing that Ulduar was going to be harder or as hard as when it originally released. It's more of a question on like the overall player base having such an easier time with Nax, so many people raiding. Like a lot of those guilds will have a hard time with Ulduar. Was the that's wow, I can't even think the opinion. So it's not that the raid itself is hard. It's more like people who are used to Nax raiding are going to get a wake up call. Is all it was. And I think it will break a lot of really casual guilds. Maybe. I don't know, to be honest. I'm assuming so, just in general, when you make things harder, most people just don't become interested in it. So, alright, let's take a look. Sure. Got my volume on. Yeah.
Easier than you think, and here's why.
So everyone and their dog is saying that Ulduar is going to be hard.
Oh,
I'm
look
going
at
to say
that.
that Ulduar
That's the dog.
is only going to be hard if you have a peanut brain mindset towards a raid and managing your guild. Okay, fair enough. It's going to be hard in some ways, but overall, it's going to be so much easier than you think.
Ulduar is obviously not anywhere near Mythic Retail WoW.
Yeah, and that's anyone who actually thought that is a freaking idiot. Like, if this is what that guy thought when he saw those videos, like, oh, everyone's saying it's hard, they're acting like it's harder than, like, retail. It's like, no, absolutely not. But it's harder than what has come out so far. That's all it was.
But I do think Ulduar is a massive step up in difficulty.
Yeah. Exactly it.
Now, the problem with the classic community is they have barely any patience and don't understand that as you get better gear, the easier the content becomes.
I don't think that's just classic. I think that's a MMO, like, in a sense. Because I think that's a casual player base, maybe.
Patience is a quality seriously undervalued in the classic WoW raiding community because we hyper-focus on clearing a raid in week 1.
Yeah, that's the thing. These guys, they were so impatient. They just they just cleared the whole raid in 78 minutes.
Yeah.
They didn't want to deal with it. They didn't want to see it anymore. Or just get it out.
Pretty much.
That's what we're used to. When in reality, if you spend 3 to 4 weeks progressing on a raid, that's pretty normal by the standards of modern MMO raiding. Yep. That's normal difficulty. Ulduar normal modes
on retail, I think,
going to be breaking guilds. Yes, for hard modes will be much more challenging.
Yeah, it will. Absolutely it will. Will it break, like, the actual decent guilds? No. But, like, to me, it's, like, no doubt that it will break some of the extreme, like, very, very casual guilds.
If you're able to clear Ulduar on normal mode, it's going to be an absolute Chinese buffet of gear upgrades for your raid team. Not to mention how 10-man mode is also available and much easier, and provides a truckload of even more better gear upgrades.
It provides better gear than 25,
I still haven't mentioned how Heroic Plus dungeons will contain raid loots from the previous tier and 10-mans from the previous.
I mean, time's going to really tell on what is going to be right, because that way they can just check the Warcraft logs on, you know, how many guilds actually defeated it.
Tier will now contain
versus
25-man loot. And even on top of that, 25-man mode will drop more loot. By the way, guys, if you are looking to get ready for Ulduar, I do have a little cheeky, very fast gold-making method on my subscriber-only video. All you have to do is subscribe, and you'll see it on my channel page. And if you're still leveling your character or trying to get some alts leveled up for Ulduar, you definitely want to be checking out the Reset XP leveling add-on. Reset XP just makes the leveling experience so smooth and so chill because it tells you exactly what to do. It tells you about secret quests that you can pick up for extra
at that point, yeah.
XP and tells you about graveyard and death skips to speed it up even more. And if you want 5% off, be sure to use my affiliate code down in the description. But anyway,
5% off. Like, that's not, I don't even mean to be rude, man, but that's really not much of a deal, but it's still something. But it's like Asmund said, like, if you're going to pay for something, why not just pay for a boost?
Let's carry on. When phase 2 drops, we're going to...
Unless that's something that is permanent, in which case, obviously, if you plan to level a bunch of alts, that might be a better value.
Be able to hoover up many gear upgrades as
I
a
will,
player, and a
yes.
power spike of your raid will bump up dramatically. Yes, raiding Ulduar week 1 will be fairly challenging, especially if you're trying to get every single hard mode complete.
How the fuck does this shitty DK have this axe and I don't?
Gorehell.
This shitty fucking DK. And I'm sitting here with a blue, main tanking Ulduar. This is ridiculous.
That's not Gorehell, right?
But I guarantee
I
after
can't
about
remember.
3 weeks, most guilds will have every boss and most of the hard modes completed.
Gorehell's a
and therefore
two-hander.
the raid totally on farm. Because even some of the hard modes themselves are really easy, to be honest, because they are just simple DPS checks.
Yeah, they're
and
they're
that's
not
just
bad.
I'm like thinking about like Gorehell. Like, why did I even think that? That's freaking. Isn't that Burning Crusade? I'm so dumb.
totally normal. The difficulty of Ulduar is just going to feel like you're in a normal raid environment, especially for the retail player. If the content was difficult, it would take much longer to complete all of the hard modes, and the raid...
I actually think the main reason why it's not going to take people this long is because everybody knows exactly what to do.
Yeah.
Every strategy for Ulduar has been min-max down to a T. And I can guarantee you, if you brought out Castle Nathria again, people would be able to clear it really fast.
Much
Like the
faster
Race to
than
World first,
original.
if you had, you know, they
Yep.
had to go back and do Castle Nathria again in like some fucking like hyperbolic time chamber or something, it would happen probably at least 2 or 3 days faster.
in its entirety.
Exactly.
Now, I've been working on a video this week about some of the hardest raid
You don't really need a wipe to figure out strats. Like, you know the strats already.
bosses over many different MMOs in the industry. I know these are extreme examples, but these are real examples of real hard raid bosses and raids. I mean, some raids took over 650 wipes for the top guilds to actually defeat, or only 0.5% of the game's population completed a raid, or in some cases, you had to wait for the next expansion in order to be powerful enough to finish the raid. So
When
That's
did
good.
that ever
releasing
happen?
not much longer after this video, so be sure to check that one out.
Like, what MMO was that where they released a raid boss where you had to wait for the expansion before they could down them?
I guarantee that retail raiders, not even like mythic raiders, they're going to be sitting back and laughing at this Ulduar is hard narrative, because it's nothing compared to the average mythic raid on retail. The main reason why there's this perception that Ulduar will be difficult isn't because the raid itself is actually difficult.
It's the
It's
players.
because a big part of a classic population are simply less skilled players. And this is because
Thank you.
Well, that's one of the reasons why they like Classic. I mean, let's be fair.
He
It's one of the appeals.
just fucking says it. Holy shit. Let's listen to that one again.
that Ulduar will be difficult isn't because the raid itself is actually difficult. It's because a big part of a classic population are simply less skilled players. And this
I cannot wait to read the comments on this video.
People are going to be pretty mad. But it is true. I mean, that in, like, if you're not playing, like, retail at all, you're only playing Classic, like, you probably got rusty with raiding, even if you did raid in retail at one point, so...
because the game attracts a more casual audience. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with this, of course. But saying that Ulduar is hard because it's a difficult raid is simply, in my humble opinion,
I don't think anyone was saying, like, it's a hard raid, no one's going to be able to do it. It's more like, this is harder than what's been out.
just not accurate. It's
No,
hard.
I think Ulduar is definitely hard. It is much more of a hard raid than any of the raids that Classic has had before this, maybe except for Sunwell.
Someone was
Depending
pretty
on
tough.
like what your
Yeah.
guild is, etc. And the reason for that is it's hard compared to Nax. It's hard compared to Malagos.
Exactly.
It's not hard objectively compared to Retail WoW, but compared to the previous Classic content, it's a massive step up in difficulty.
because
I think
on
it's true.
average, classic WoW players,
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, I don't know if I'm gonna agree with the original video, because Asmin just said it perfectly. It's like, yeah, it's not hard if you compare it to, like, retail WoW. But then why are you comparing it to that? Because it's not retail WoW. You got to compare it to its environment, which is like Nax and stuff. In which case, it is actually a difficult raid.
are less skilled raiders than retail WoW raiders.
That's
Just
true.
because most guilds won't be able to complete the raid and all of the hard modes on week 1 does not mean that it's a difficult raid. In fact,
Man, I feel like one thing about Classic WoW that feels good is the numbers that pop up on the screen,
Yeah.
man. Whenever you get like an attack that crits and 2 of your auto attacks crit, and you see those
Big
3
numbers. Yep.
pop up on the screen, it's like you just busted a nut on your monitor. It looks so good. I don't know why they changed that. It was so fucking good, man.
More like, why can't they have it where you can change it back?
just means, again, it's just a normal raid by retail World of Warcraft standards. A more accurate thing to say would be Ulduar is a raid that is no longer easy. Yes, your casual dad guilds might take a while to get the raid completed, but because they're hoovering up so much gear in this phase, it's only a matter of time before they complete the content.
Not fully. There's a few fights that are very mechanic intensive in a way. I mean, obviously not like I said, it's not really that hard of fights, but there's definitely ones where you can't just ignore the mechanics, which is what a lot of those guilds will do.
If you really
like, they'll take out the DPS check ones, but will they actually nail like Memoron, for example?
They actually, I think that's also true too, because all of the gear in Ulduar got buffed. My understanding was that it was only going to be the hard mode gear, but everything in Ulduar got buffed. Like back in the day, actually, I don't need to go through all the numbers. Basically, every single piece of loot got a +6. And the hard mode gear got even more than that. Like the hard mode gear got like a plus, it was like 239, and now it's 252. So that's like what, 13 item levels? That's insane. So yeah, especially because people are able to farm the easier hard modes, and then they will be able to outgear the harder hard modes, which I think is totally good and totally fine. This is a good thing because it gives people a sense of progression where they get more powerful every single week. That's MMO.
Yeah, exactly. Feels good.
Experience a difficult version of
doesn't mean it's going to be a joke, but it will be easier.
Servers, and people did much less DPS on private servers because there was a much smaller min-max theory crafting community. I mean, it's only a recent thing that Death Knights, for instance, have gone dual wield rather than using a two-hander. In fact, I was looking back at some of my old footage from private servers, and I was doing about 8k DPS in full Ulduar gear with a two-handed weapon. And now I can do like 11 to 13,000 DPS with Phase 1 gear. And bearing those facts in mind, and also considering that private server...
To be fair, obviously this weapon here is a Seer's Edge. This is only a 232 weapon, and this comes from XT Deconstructor, 10-man hard mode, and these shoulders, of course, are also tier 7. So this is not full Ulduar gear.
Much more difficult. A lot of the private servers that I've played didn't see a dramatic player drop-off because the raid was too difficult. It just didn't happen. The only time where this really ever actually happened was playing Endless WoW, but that's a story for a different time.
Okay.
The point is, classes have now unleashed their true potential because of all the big brains that have come together and theory-crafted the class to do the maximum DPS. And also, these days, even casual guilds
I actually don't believe that. Like, a lot of players do not theory craft in min-max. It's more like they see who, like, are supposedly the best classes, and that's as far as they look into it. They don't see, like, rotation, what to do in situations. Literally, it's just what's the meta class, and that's that's as far as they go in terms of, like, min-maxing.
Really go sweaty and min-max raid setups, because now many raid teams are stacking DKs, Warlocks, and Rogues, and a few mages in there as well. The DPS that raid groups are doing now compared to private servers and the original Raffle Education.
That's like not that sweaty though. That's like the least sweaty thing you can do. Like if you're getting potions and stuff, you're more sweaty than just bringing in a class.
Will be much higher, and I simply don't think that.
Well, you just have better players on the retail servers versus private servers.
And it's not like it's the players themselves are exactly better. It's more like they have to play at a higher level to even play the game. So that's really what it is, which is one of my kind of gripes with retail WoW right now, is it feels intimidating for a casual player to try to get into Mythic or Raiding.
It's just that simple. And why do you have better players? Because the people that they're going to try harder. Like there's more of an incentive to play and try harder on retail servers than
I would disagree. I think it's not the incentive. It's the fact that I mean, in a sense, it's incentive, but it's the same incentive as classic gear. Like you want to get gear, right? So that's the incentive. However, the bar to getting that gear is higher in retail in terms of difficulty because you Mythic Pluses and rating or arena, if you're doing PvP, is going to be harder in retail. Well, maybe not arena, but the other two will be harder in retail than it is in classic. That's pretty much it.
private servers because you can be recognized for being really good on a retail server. You
I mean,
can't
maybe
really be recognized.
I think like if you're talking about the very peak, then I would agree here on this point. But other than that, I don't think like the average player. I mean, yes, everyone wants to be recognized, but I don't think anyone like is under a delusion that they're like the best player in the game or even close to it. Like, if you can't even make it to the top guild, why would you think like your prestige is gonna matter?
recognized for being really good on a private server. That's why pretty much as far as I know, every single speed run, the fastest speed run happened on a classic server.
Well, a lot of times that's just because it's the most fair and the most what's the word I'm looking for? Established thing. It's like with Elden Ring, like all the speed runs are usually done with either like the original, like first day release, or when they've removed like bugs and stuff. But none of them do it with like a mod, like which is basically a private server.
It didn't happen on a private server.
Tuning Blizzard have done to Ulduar will be enough to.
But yeah, I mean, definitely, it's like I said, like the very top of player base. Then yeah, for those people who are going for the prestige, it does make sense that you would want to be on retail or at least the main servers versus a private server.
And you also have like way more people. So like
Yes.
for example, if you invite let's say, let me think of a way to put this. Like if you take 10,000 people and then another group is 1,000 people, the odds are you are going to have higher highs in the group of 10,000 than the group of 1,000 because you just have more people to choose from.
The progress for the average guild.
Like if you go by percentages, let's say the top 1%, there's way more people at that level with the 10,000 people versus the 1,000.
And again, this is totally fine. Classic
It's not a guarantee, but it's more than likely.
is a different game to retail World of Warcraft, and it attracts a different audience. Classic shouldn't
It's
be
a
as
bigger
difficult as
ecosystem.
retail WoW, and I'm definitely not saying that either. I think the difficulty of Classic WoW is totally fine. They maybe should have buffed Phase 1 just a little bit, but even then,
They did.
it's not massively important because Phase 1 really is just a run-up phase.
Yeah.
Overall, I just think that people are getting their knickers in a twist about Ulduar. Ulduar won't be a hard raid. It's just not going to be a brain-dead snooze fest like Phase 1 raiding.
So it's going to be a hard
It
raid.
will likely be the perfect middle ground. Basically just your run-of-the-mill typical retail WoW raid without the mythic mode. Normal modes will be...
I would agree with that. I think that raids, like difficulty in like WoW raids, I think after like somewhere around like Cataclysm to Wrath actually made raids worse. Like the games just, the raids just got too hard. They got too hard for the average player, and I think that they just lost a lot of people in translation there.
Absolutely. That in the one of the biggest problems isn't exactly that too. It's wait, why is that all dark? It's to me at least like it feels like when you come back to the game, say for example, you hated Shadowlands, you didn't really like BFA. Like my situation, I didn't really play either of them too much. BFA just because I was not interested at all. Shadowlands I played a little, but I couldn't get into raiding because I just wasn't like the game sucked. I hated Shadowlands almost from the get-go. So I'm like, okay, well I'm not going to raid because I'm not invested. So I missed those two full expansions, and then coming back, like just because I didn't play it, didn't mean the game wasn't progressing in difficulty. So if I had played those expansions and raided, it'd be fine, but I didn't. So now me trying to go back, I'm just like, dude, like, it just, I don't want to. Like, it just feels not, I don't know. It just feels like I'm not good enough, I guess, for the raid in terms of like, which is a weird feeling because it's like I've never had that feeling in any other MMO. But with WoW, I think it's because the add-ons as well. Like I feel like, well, I don't know, because the add-on system is just so like in depth in WoW. Like it's crazy once you like dive into that rabbit hole. Like I got like the normal add-ons, and then like while I was like looking at videos, they're like, oh, you want to get this, like I forget the name of it now, but it's like this add-on that you can add add-ons into it that like completely change the way the game weak aura, I think it is, yeah. And it's just like, dude, what? Why can't the game just be good without add-ons? Like, why do I have to get all these things for it to even be like, oh, like I don't know. It made me really not want to raid, basically. So
And they stopped raiding and they stopped playing the game.
yeah,
Like regardless of whether you can do it or not, like I could do it, of course, right? I fucking play video games all day, but think about how many people, like I know this happened with my mom, is like she used to raid in Classic, she raided in BC, she raided she raided
I think I had an echo. One moment. Let's see if I can find it. I think I had an echo. One moment. Let's see if I can find it. I think I had an echo. Oh, that's why.
with my mom, is like she used to raid in Classic, she raided in BC, she raided she raided in Nax, she didn't fucking do Ulduar. And then by the time Kata was out and Mists of Pandaria was out, she was not raiding at all.
Yeah.
So that's just what
A
happened.
lot of people were like that.
The raids were just too fucking hard, man.
Just as difficult as normal mode and retail,
And
hard modes as difficult
Yep.
as heroic modes, with Yogg-Saron and Algalon being just a little bit of a level higher.
Yeah.
Now, my advice will be to not do what my old guild did when progressing on Maru. Don't force your raid to wipe over 100 times on one boss. If you're wiping and not particularly progressing on a boss, well, guess what? Your raid isn't skilled enough to defeat it. Therefore,
If I wiped 100 times on a boss in Classic WoW, I would delete the game. Like, I remember one time we wiped on, I think it was like Vicidus or something. We wiped one time, I wanted to quit WoW. I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore, guys. Like, this is, look, it was good. We had a good run, but I'm done. I'm tired of it. I want to move on with my life.
Yeah, I don't know how you can have that much trouble in a classic raid. Like it's just to be fair, like if your guild is like wiping in a classic raid, like I think you just need to sit down and accept like you're not playing with good like people who are good gamers. Like not gamers but like are skilled. That's pretty much it. So it's like just let them know like guys, I think we should just gear up more. Like just so we can ignore these mechanics.
you're going to have to wait
I'm
until
such
you
a
get more
bitch.
gear.
I know.
Be patient,
I'm
and
not
everything
sorry.
that Ulduar has to offer will be doable. Especially now, as in Phase 2, there's so many different avenues that you can take to get more gear, whereas in some world progression, you could only do the first few bosses to gear up your raid. And that is one of the reasons why Maru was so difficult, because mechanically, it's such a simple encounter. You just needed so much...
I guarantee you that shit. Let's watch how people die on this fight. Here we go.
...on one boss. If you're wiping and not particularly progressing on a boss, well, guess what? Your raid
that guy just killed him.
Isn't skilled enough to defeat it. Therefore, you're going to have to wait until you get more gear.
Oh, was that the tank?
To defeat it. Therefore, you're going to have to wait until you get more gear.
No, he's
fine. Be patient, and everything that Ulduar has to offer will be doable. Especially now, as in Phase 2, there's so many different avenues that you can take to get more gear, whereas in
I don't know
some world progression, you could only do the first few bosses to gear up your raid. And that is one of the reasons why Maru was so difficult, because mechanically it's such a simple encounter. You just needed so much AoE DPS to keep the ads in check. How are you going to increase your AoE DPS of your raid group without getting more gear?
You just, well, there's 4 warlocks in the raid. Just pump those numbers up. Pretty simple. I mean, I can see the problem is right there in front of me. I mean, come on.
Ulduar progression very simply will not have the same issues.
2 more warlocks.
Anyway, guys, may RNG Jesus favour you when it comes to loot drops. And to all my unholy Death Knight chads out there, do not re-roll. Trust me, there's no need. Just before I jump off the video, guys, normally when you subscribe to a channel, you get absolutely nothing in return.
Yeah.
But on my channel, I have loads of subscriber-only exclusive videos and guides. All you have to do is subscribe, go to my channel page, and the subscriber-only video will be waiting for you. But anyway, guys,
I didn't even know you could do that. What the hell?
Ciao.
That's crazy. What the fuck? All right.
Failed franchises.
Yeah, YouTube has added a lot of things for their subscriber
Bankruptcy.
thing.
So everyone on
Classic players don't know the phrase play better. Well, the thing is, like, how could a classic player ever play better if they mastered the game back then? They're already better than they could than retail players. So what's the, like, where do you go from there? This is a MetaGoblin video. We've watched a lot of them. I think it was absolutely fucking hilarious that he just went out and said that, and I think this is true, okay? Maybe I'm just being a dick and this is a little bit of recency bias. But guys, I think people that play Classic are worse on average than people that play retail.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I think so. As somebody who raids on both retail and Classic, I absolutely feel that way. It's not even a question. I fucking agree. Yeah, it is what it is.
Like, I don't even play Classic, but it's like, to me, it's just, it would be the obvious thing. Especially for anyone who only really plays Classic, doesn't really touch retail. Like, on average, they're just working with mechanics that are easier. Like, whether it's in the dungeons, or like the normal, like, knacks. It's like, of course it's going to be easier. So you don't need to get good.
The reason Ulduar is hard for Classic community is because of the dreaded roster boss. No, it's the monitor boss, and half of the people in your raid team probably haven't beat it yet.
Yeah.
It's pretty tough on Warmane, still able to get cleared. We weren't getting TOC item level gear at the time. Yeah, I think TOC item level gear is going to work. Blizzard actually has a really good idea with this, and it's a very elegant and good solution. Because getting TOC item level gear will not only make Ulduar relevant longer, which is good in itself, but it will also act as a soft nerf to Ulduar.
Yeah, I remember that.
So it's like you're getting the 10 or 15%
that does make sense.
buff that you get out of ICC, but you get it from Ulduar and you earn it with gear.
Yep.
Raids got harder over time through retail, and Wrath is a solved problem at this point, so skill levels stagnate. Streamer is quite a mess during original progression. There are always people wanting to replace you at the first mistake, always. Yeah, but the thing is, they were bad too. Let's see here if there's any more comments that are interesting. I don't know. I personally don't remember anything in Ulduar being hard as Kale. Mind you, my guild never unlocked the extra boss. I mean, Kale Thos was pretty hard back in the day, sure. I mean, I would say so. Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
Here we got somebody who's mad. Most Classic players are less skilled than retail raiders. Not necessarily in disagreement with this, but do you have evidence to support this? Yes. If you would like evidence, you can refer to my VOD from today, or you can refer to any of my previous VODs from previous days. That's just it. I don't necessarily disagree with this, but I disagree with this. As in, there's a high possibility it's true, but such sweeping statements ought to have some evidence to back them up. There's no evidence to it, okay? But, like, it's fucking true.
How would you get evidence? Like, how would that even work? Like, just think about it for a second and realize how dumb you sound for even asking for it. Like, give me evidence that the skill player base overall is less than retail. It's like, unless they forced every player to do some kind of skill test, you would never know.
Like, let's be real. Maybe there is, some hidden fucking holy grail of classic WoW players that have somehow figured out the game and can play it. Well, I haven't found them.
That's probably like the world first of classic players. I mean, I would assume. Alright, so that was Ulduar will be easier than you think. That's both true and not true. Was it easier, or I'm sorry, is it going to be easier than when it first released? Yeah, absolutely. Like, the strategies are down. People know which classes are better more than they used to. Metas are like really like broken down to a crazier degree than ever before. So obviously it will be easier than like when it first released. And from what I understand, they're buffing the loot that's dropping too. So it's just like, yeah, it's going to be easier, but at the same time, it's way harder than anything that, like, if you're only a classic player, then this is going to be a pretty hard raid for you. More than likely. Not a guarantee, but more than likely.